Dhirubhai Ambani started his business with just 15,000 rupees in 1958, but by the time he died in 2002, he was worth $2.9 billion, and he was the 138th richest person in the world. After his death, the Reliance empire came under the combined control of Mukesh and Anil Ambani. In March 2006, Mukesh Ambani's net worth was $8.5 billion, and he was the 56th richest person in the world. And Anil Ambani's net worth was $5.7 billion. He was the 104th richest person in the world. And fast forward to now and see the contrast. Mukesh Ambani is worth around $100 billion and the 19th richest person in the world. But Anil Ambani, as you all know, has vanished from the picture altogether. In this video, we'll specifically analyze what made Dhirubhai so successful and legendary, what strategies he used to build the Reliance empire, and the lessons we can learn from him. In part 2, we'll analyze what made Mukesh Ambani so successful, and in part 3, we'll see how and why Anil Ambani stumbled very badly. You are watching Dawn Unicorns. Subscribe for more videos on startups and entrepreneurship. He was born in 1932 in Chorwad, a small coastal town in Gujarat. His father was a school teacher. They were a lower middle class family. So there was no industrial legacy, no capital, and no powerful network. At the age of 16, he left India and went to Aden, which is present-day Yemen, at the time one of the busiest trading ports between Europe, the Middle East and Asia. There he worked as a clerk for ABC & Co., a very big trading firm at that time. It was while working there that Dhirubhai studied the architecture of global commerce. He saw how commodities moved across continents, how credit works, the mechanism behind supply chains, how currency arbitrage creates profit, how traders extract margins, and how governments, traders and financiers interact. So in a sense, Dhirubhai received a real-world MBA in global trade. After working there and learning lots of real-world business for 10 years, Dhirubhai returned to India in 1958 with around 50,000 rupees in hand. But more importantly, he returned with an ambition and clear sense of direction. And he started Reliance Commercial Corporation. At first, it was simple trading. He began with trading spices to Gulf countries, and then he imported polyester yarn to sell in India. And then in 1966, the value of rupee had fallen, which made importing very costly. So then he thought he cannot rely on imports alone. So instead of just importing and selling yarn, he decided to weave the yarn himself. To achieve this, he set up the Neroda textile mill in 1966. So from being a trader, now he became a manufacturer of textiles. And the brand name for his textile was Vimal. But the thing is, textile manufacturers used to sell through wholesalers at that time. But Dhirubhai got some resistance from wholesalers because he was a new player. Then he did something bold and radical. He bypassed wholesalers and sold directly to retailers. And then he marketed directly to customers. He literally spent 1 crore rupees for marketing in those days. That was the first time in India that a textile company did mass marketing and branding. The tagline was only Vimal. It became insanely popular and Vimal became a brand. And then Dhirubhai wanted funds to scale his business. But banks rejected him. Then again Dhirubhai bypassed banks and took a bold step. Reliance got listed in the stock market in 1977. But the genius of Dhirubhai is, he literally travelled across Gujarat and organized meetings to explain to middle class people what investing is, how they will make money, and why they should invest in Reliance. By doing that, for the first time, he raised equity around 50,000 retail investors across Gujarat. That was the first time in India that common people were introduced to the stock market on such a large scale. So he pioneered the equity revolution in India. And the shareholders of Reliance actually became a firewall against the government. Because then if the government hurts Reliance, it was simultaneously hurting a lot of middle class people, which means losing a crucial vote bank. So once he got massive capital, Dhirubhai entered the petrochemical segment. Because manufacturing Vimal fabric means he still depended on imported polyester yarn. That dependence is a critical weakness. The price of polyester is directly subject to global price fluctuations. So he wanted to level up the control over the value chain. Now let's first try to understand the broad value chain sequence of making polyester yarn. It starts with crude oil, which is found deep underground. From crude oil, a liquid called naphtha is refined. From naphtha, a chemical named paraxylene is derived. From paraxylene, a chemical called PTA, purified terephthalic acid, and a liquid chemical named MEG, monoethylene glycol, are derived. Now these two are combined to produce polyester polymer, which is then spun into polyester yarn. And from polyester yarn, Reliance manufactures Vimal textiles in the Neroda textile mill. But until then, Reliance was importing polyester yarn to make the fabric or textiles. From then on, Dhirubhai decided he should produce it himself. So to get the control over this value chain, large-scale industrial infrastructure had to be built. So in 1982, he started constructing Patal Ganga Petrochemical Complex. In that complex, he first constructed a plant that produces polyester yarn. But even then, he was importing the raw materials needed to produce polyester yarn. So he constructed another plant in the same complex to produce the raw materials. And in the process, he started building Hazira Petrochemical Plant and completed it in 1991. So with the building of these two plants, Dhirubhai controlled the supply chain until the level of producing PTA and MEG. But for the rest of the value chain, he still depended on others, whether it was naphtha or paraxylene. And to remove that dependence too, Dhirubhai envisioned Jamnagar refinery, which eventually became the world's largest oil refining and petrochemical complex. The construction began in 1996 and it was completed in December 2008 under the leadership of Mukesh Ambani after Dhirubhai died in 2002. If you see, most textile companies stopped at manufacturing fabric, but Dhirubhai was a man of completely different magnitude. He asked, where does the polyester come from? Petrochemicals. So Reliance moved upstream, first into polyester fiber, then into petrochemicals, then into refining. The strategy was to control the entire value chain, from crude oil to retail fabric. This is vertical integration at a gigantic scale. So now the lessons and strategies we have to learn from Dhirubhai is, number one is ferocious ambition. Nothing happens if you don't have that. Number two is educating yourself. Even though Dhirubhai never had formal education beyond 10th class, the 10 years he spent at Aden were decisive in making Dhirubhai the legend. It was there he observed and learned as much business as possible with a razor-sharp attention to detail and focus. So we have to learn as much as possible, as early as possible. Lesson number 3 is start with something and always keep expanding. Never settle. Dhirubhai started with spices and then polyester yarn and then manufacturing textiles and then building huge complexes to control the entire value chain. He never settled until he died. So you should always keep strengthening your business. Lesson number 4 is being bold and daring. As a newcomer in textiles, he bypassed wholesalers and directly sold to retailers. And also he bypassed banks to go directly to people by listing Reliance in the stock market. So being bold and having a mentality of just do it is a fundamental requirement. Lesson number 5 is marketing and branding. Nowadays, almost all major brands use cricket for marketing. IPL sponsorship is a flagship in India. But Dhirubhai was a pioneer of using cricket for marketing. He was the first businessman in India who sponsored 1986 Cricket World Cup, and the tournament itself was named as the Reliance Cup. Even Peter Thiel in his book 0 to 1 says, branding is a powerful strategy to create a monopoly. So you should take branding and marketing very seriously. Lesson number 6 is Dhirubhai's genius of using financial leverage. The reality is, Dhirubhai borrowed heavily. And in reality, no business can expand aggressively without leverage. So Dhirubhai became a pro at using financial leverage, whether it was from banks, stock market, issuing bonds and debentures. Dhirubhai never saw debt as something wrong. For Dhirubhai, debt is a weapon, but he used it with a razor-sharp calculation and judgment. So we should also learn to use financial leverage to our advantage. Lesson number 7 is vertical integration. We have seen Dhirubhai was keen on controlling multiple stages of the supply chain. And with the completion of Jamnagar refinery, Reliance literally controls every stage of the petroleum value chain. Lesson number 8 is scale and defensibility. Dhirubhai did everything at a scale that is difficult to replicate. For most people, you become too big to challenge if you build something at a massive scale. That's your powerful defense. Lesson number 9, you have to build powerful assets. Be it the petrochemical plants at Patal Ganga or Hazira and the Jamnagar refinery, these are powerful industrial assets that other challengers cannot easily have. If you take Google, the Google search algorithm, their massive technical talent pool, their ecosystem control through Android, their data control, these are all powerful assets that other tech companies cannot match. So we should also have to build our own powerful assets. Lesson number 10 is being the first player. While Dhirubhai was not the first player in trading spices or yarn or manufacturing textiles, he was the first player who bypassed wholesalers and directly sold to retailers. Again, he was the first player who did mass marketing for textiles. He was the first player to sponsor Cricket World Cup. And he was the first player who turned middle class people into investors in his companies. In the same way, Elon built the first successful electric car company. He built the first successful private space company. So, being first and unconventional, whether it is in terms of entering a market or using a new strategy in the same existing market, is vital to build an empire. Lesson number 11, the most controversial of all, is playing the system. Dhirubhai famously stated that his most important raw material was the government of India. He maintained close relationships with top leaders of Congress, BJP, and other third fronts, and also with ministers and bureaucrats. So he got what he wanted by giving what they wanted. If you want to do business at a large scale, invariably you are subject to favorable or unfavorable government regulation. So it becomes imperative that you play the system excellently. The overarching theme of all these lessons and strategies and Dhirubhai's business journey is he understood systems thinking like no other in India. That's how Dhirubhai Ambani built the empire. But after he was gone, the same empire produced two completely different destinies. Mukesh Ambani turned Reliance into a 200 billion conglomerate. Anil Ambani lost almost everything. The question is, how did the same empire create two opposite outcomes? That is what we'll analyze in part 2 and part 3 and draw some valuable lessons and strategies. Subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss those part 2 and part 3. This is Deepak Lead signing off.